okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, hang on just a minute. I gotta unmute the music and
I'm in an office. I hope nobody can see it. Oh, because I'm in an office and I'm in Crescent City, California, up by the border with Oregon. So I wanted to make sure that the internet is stable and okay.
yeah, we can hear you fine.
Awesome.
So yeah, let me just do a couple things quick. And I was running a little late. I didn't realize it was time already. So I didn't get time to do my makeup or my hair. So I'm going a la natural.
I look horrible. And will the book be on the fortune cookie?
Yeah, Amber's going to take care of that in a minute. So, and we just lost her on the screen. Where did you go, Amber?
Amber, where did you go? I need you.
There she is.
Reading the link to the book. So
Wow,
Yes.
I just spilled water all over me.
No worries, no worries. Actually, we have a few minutes. We logged in just a little early, so we'll give it just a minute. And
So people can't see us just yet, right?
yeah, they can see you.
Oh, they can see me already and they can hear me.
We
Oh,
can see,
damn.
we can hear you.
Oh,
There you go. Your fans are already there cheering you on. Thank you, Deanna.
wow. All right. I'll behave.
Well, we'll go ahead and get started because it's right on the money. And then as people join us, they can listen in. And so hello, Firesiders. Welcome to Adventures by the Book, where our mission is to connect people and communities through the superpower of books. I'm Susan McBeth, and I'm delighted to have both Amber back today and Jesse Lee on, the author of his memoir, I'm Not Broken, which I don't know where I put it. I was going to hold up a copy like I do, but thank you, Amber. I'm Not Broken. Today is the last part 4 of a 4-part mini-series, each week focusing on a different aspect of Jesse's life. I want to welcome everybody who is in the virtual studio audience, and those of you who are, as you know, can join us on stage at any time by inviting yourself up and chatting live with Jesse, asking questions, comments, anything you want to have to say about our conversation. I want to welcome everybody who's joining us on our public profile page and also on all our social media channels. After the event, the recording gets posted on our YouTube channel for Adventures by the Book. So you can check it out there if you want to listen in or share it with other people. We're going to have approximately a 45-minute chat today. It's intended as a conversation, which we like about Fireside, because you can join us anytime and chat live, which we love. The conversations are heart-wrenching. They're personal, they're difficult, but the beauty of it is that Jesse's channeled all of his journey into a book that's designed to inspire and help you. So we appreciate that. It's his extraordinary story of resilience and survival that shines a light on his childhood spent devastated by sex trafficking, street life, and substance abuse. Our conversations each week are focusing on a different aspect of Jesse's identity that's described in the book, while also detailing the possibilities of self-transformation and self-acceptance, including coming to terms with various aspects of his identity. If you already haven't pre-ordered a copy of his book, which does not publish until August, you can pre-order a copy at our website, adventuresbythebook.com. You'll see that link in our fortune cookie in the middle of your screen, or from your favorite bookseller if you don't want to get it from us. If you joined the first 3 episodes, you already learned a lot about Jesse's life. You probably already know a lot of his background, but I do want to recap just because he's earned it, as well as for those people who are just joining us for the first time. Besides being a newly published author, he is a social impact consultant to foundations, impact investors, nonprofits, and real estate developers on ways to address issues of substance abuse, affordable housing, and educational opportunities for at-risk youth. And he is the perfect person to do that based on his experience and his incredible journey. Since receiving a master's education from the Harvard Kennedy School, he's managed multi-million-dollar philanthropic grant making for various foundations and banking institutions, and managed over $1 billion in private sector investments for affordable housing, and built thousands of units of mixed income housing as a real estate developer for Bank of America. The first three conversations we had focused on Jesse's identity first as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, then as a child of Mexican immigrants, and then last week as the first member of his family to attend college. This week, we're going to focus on his identity as a recovering addict. And thank you, Jesse, and welcome. And thank you for being so brave and bold to share your journey with us.
It's an honor to be here, Susan. And Amber, it's so good to see you. Thank you, and everyone who's on here supporting. I thought the other topics were going to be difficult. And then thinking about this one, it's the one that hits home heavily, especially being in recovery. So what do you want me to do? Do you want me to jump in and read a piece or?
Yeah. So what we've done, for those of you who are listening in, what we've done each week is we've started off by having Jesse read a brief segment from his book that deals with the conversation at hand for today, which again is his journey as a recovering addict. So he'll do a little reading, then we'll ask some questions, chat for a little bit. I know Amber has some questions for him as well, and anybody from our studio audience can have questions or chat live with Jesse as well anytime. So you want to go ahead with the reading, and you want to give us a little brief background into what you're reading and put it in context for us?
Yes. So I chose this. So a lot of my book talks about my journey in recovery as a recovering addict, and the difficulties of how hard it was getting clean young at 18 years old, at a time when not many young people of color were knocking on the doors of Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And so right before this scene, my girlfriend at the time, uh, we got in a huge argument, and she threw the yellow pages at me and screaming at me said, "You have a fucking drug problem and I need you to do something about it and find some help." So she throws the yellow pages at me, and I call the Narcotics Anonymous hotline. And some guy named Boozer answers, and he tells me where to go to a meeting. And so this is us waiting outside to go in. All right. And it's pretty emotional for me, so bear with me if I
Take
start to
your
cry.
time. Yeah.
It was dark outside when we pulled into the poorly lit parking lot of an old church. We watched people milling about outside the church smoking cigarettes. Then they went into what looked like a basement along the side of the building. We waited about 10 minutes, and then I asked Hope, "So now what? It looks like the meeting thing must be starting. Do you want to go in or not?" "Okay, let's go in. Come on, you ready?" "Hell nah, I ain't ready. But fuck it, eh? Let's check this shit out," I said as I exhaled with nervous energy. It was dark outside as we walked toward the light coming from the open basement doors. What the fuck am I getting into? I thought. As we looked inside, I pulled my black beanie down almost to my nose. I was wearing khaki dickies with a white tank top and a Pendleton. Slowly, we walked in, not knowing what to do. Inside, people were sitting around in a circle listening to some white dude with a thick goatee speak. I didn't really make out what he was saying as I was worried about my appearance and who was looking at us. We must have seemed like two lost rabbits sniffing our way around. A woman with flaming red hair and rockabilly bangs covered in tattoos waved to us to sit down next to her. We walked toward her and grabbed two chairs. Everyone else was silent, listening to the guy speaking. I looked around and then slouched backward into my metal folding chair, crossed my arms, buried my head chin deep into my chest. Every so often, I'd look around from under the edge of my beanie. I try to focus on the guy sharing his story. I heard him say that anyone was welcomed in a meeting, and it didn't matter how old they were, if they were gay or straight or bi, or whatever race or religion the person belonged to. He was looking, though, directly at me. Immediately, I thought he was lying and had only said what he said because I was the only young Chicano in the room. I pulled my head back down. I put my head back down, but kept listening. He started to tell crazy stories about his past. When he talked about some deeply painful experiences, the people in the room were laughing. I began to smile too while hiding a laugh because I too could relate. Obviously, though, I was too cool to let any of them see me smile or chuckle. After he shared about his using, he began to explain about how he got clean and what it was like to live without drugs. He talked about feeling hope. As I listened, I felt a comfort come over me, as if a tiny glimmer of light from an almost snuffed out candle started to slowly brighten. Something came over me and I began to cry. I didn't just let out a few tears, I started to sob and I slouched forward in my chair. I ducked my head between my knees and held my face in my hands, and I just cried. Tears formed a small puddle on the floor. Hope had her arm on my back. No one got up to grab me, to try to hold me. The guy didn't stop talking. No one told me to shut up. No one gave me a tissue. They just let me cry. And so I cried. Something magical happened at that moment. I felt like I was in the right place for the very first time in a very long time. I felt like I identified with everyone and everything that he was saying, and that others identified too. I mean, only those of us who have gone through some crazy, insane shit like he was talking about would find humor in the identification. When the meeting was over, everyone got up to form a circle with arms around one another. Two people had their arms around me on each side as I stood there with tears crusted on my face and my arms limp by my sides. They recited a prayer in unison that I had not heard before. They called it the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It was beautiful, yet simple. Oh, God. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Well, your courage is profound, Jesse, and you're just brave to share that very vulnerable experience with us today. And I know it's really difficult for you, and I hope it gives you some sense of comfort to know how many people you're going to be helping and motivating and inspiring because you had the bravery to come on here and share that very emotional moment with us.
And I cried because it was that moment that even when I read that prayer, even when we say that prayer at meetings, it's so simple. Yet it takes me back to that moment. And for those of you that haven't read the book and those of you that are on here that don't know me, but know others in this journey, it was that first time in a very, very long time that I felt a sense of hope. a sense that change was possible, that I could find a new way of life. And yeah, yeah.
And look at you now. Look at you now. It's awesome. It's awesome. So, well, I know we're going to be talking about your journey as a recovering addict, but I think we need to back up a little bit and talk about your journey to becoming an addict. So, can you share a little bit of that story with us about where and when and how that all got started and where you ended up, where you started before you had that momentous moment at the meeting?
Oh wow, you want to go there?
Only where you're comfortable, Jesse.
So, without giving away the book,
Yeah.
um, my memoir, I'm Not Broken, talks about my journey of being, and we've talked about it, that loving, nerdy, caring kid who just wanted to read and draw and color in coloring books, and I got sexually abused, and my abusers started getting me high. And so when the authorities got involved, I was already a drug addict. My escape from the pain, the shame, the self blame, the self deprecating thoughts, and all that negative self talk that would just not shut up. The drugs help silence that and keep those voices at bay. And I turned to sex work at 14 to support my drug habit. And so, fast forward after having, without giving away the details, I ended up homeless at 18, strung out on crystal meth and heroin, weighing 135 pounds, sleeping under a bush in a park, sucking dick for $2, just for the mere sake of, sometimes for free, just for the mere sake of someone to look at me, to feel some kind of validation. And my validation came from my body. So I was also dealing with body dysmorphia and being bulimic, um, because my validation came from my body and what you thought of me. And so, see, when other people maybe see an attractive, elderly Latino man, I'm not gonna say elderly, we'll say, whatever. I'm in my mid,
You are not elderly. Let's not even go there. Because if
you
you're
know,
elderly, what does that make me? So we're not going there, Jesse.
my head tells me that what I see here in this video is I got gray hair, I'm chunky. I don't see what other people see. And that negative self talk is what I'm constantly having to work through. And so it's that addict behavior, that addict mind, that negative self talk. And I'm always having to practice gratitude to stay in the moment and trying to switch that. Um, so I ended up homeless. And so some things happened, that's in the book, that I didn't stay clean right away after that meeting. But my last night using was March 11th, and my clean date is March 12th, 1993. So I'll be celebrating 30 years clean and sober in March of next year. And that, thank you.
Absolutely. Give him a round of applause. That's it's 30 years.
And the beauty of recovery is going from being a homeless, drug addicted, strung out on heroin, sex worker, hopping in and out of cars to turn tricks, to get money, to get high, to stealing cars and breaking into the nightmare and the insanity of it all, being extremely violent and closed off to the world, to getting clean and eventually graduating with a master's degree from Harvard, you know, um, just because people didn't give up on me. And people showed me that recovery was possible, and that it was possible for me just like it was for other people like me. And so I'm trying to pay this forward and to inspire others to not give up. that they can move like I did from surviving to thriving, and that a new way of life is possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. And at what point was it? Was it this point when your girlfriend took you to this meeting, or at what point did you think, "Oh my God, I have a problem. I'm an addict"?
So there used to be these commercials. There was always the commercials of the egg in the frying pan. This is your brain on drugs.
I remember that.
But there were also these other commercials that like Alcoholics Anonymous used to have on TV. And people would have, they'd be these random faces with a candle. And it'd be like, I'm so and so, and I'm an alcoholic. And then another face would come up with a candle. I'm so and so, and I'm an alcoholic. And then somebody, and then at the end, it's if you're struggling with alcoholism, please call, blah, blah, blah. So I used to get so high with the homies, my homeboys, my homegirls. And before I'd light a joint, I'd crack a joke and be like, ha, 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 ha. I'm an addict and my name is Jesse. Ha, 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 ha. Little did I know that I would be saying those words for 30 years of my life because, I have no shame in admitting that I'm an addict and my name is Jesse. And thank God for the meetings and thank God for the fellowship that showed me a new way to live. I knew that I can't eat one carne asada burrito. I want to have two, or I can't just cut it in half and save the rest for later. I don't eat just one potato chip. I eat the whole damn bag. I can't just go to the gym for a good little 20-minute workout and then I got to hit it hard and overly obsess. I don't know about doing things in moderation. It's not in my makeup. If something feels good to me the first time, I want to over fucking do it. And that's just part of who I am. It's my makeup. And so I know that I'm an addict in so many different areas of my life.
Yeah. And I know I've got a lot of questions for you too, but I know Amber does too, and I don't want to. I want to give her a chance to ask some of her questions. So, Amber, take it away.
Hi, Jesse. It's nice to see you again
You-
today. Thank you for being here. If at any point you don't want to answer any of our questions or my questions, please just let me know. You don't have to answer anything you don't want to. But I kind of want to start off, since our theme is the road to recovery with addiction, trauma, and mental health. I kind of want to start with a more focused question. So this is a quote from the book, and I'll give you my question right after. But you said, "It's not easy growing up with anxiety attacks in a Latino immigrant family. The attacks started with nightmares, yelling in my ears that drowned out the noise around me. I would get a taste of metal in my mouth and be overwhelmed with feeling." And so, with today's topic, a lot of the times, getting to a healthy place, you have to confront your emotions. So, what was it like realizing that you were having these anxiety attacks and at such a young age, and like how did you cope with them, and what advice do you have for people who are going through a similar thing?
Wow, I love your questions, Amber. Thank you.
Hmm.
When I first felt, I know exactly the very first time an anxiety attack came on. And it was after the sexual abuse occurred. Am I freezing or am I okay?
You're good.
Okay. I was in a library and I was looking at National Geographic magazines and I was looking at an encyclopedia like I used to like to do as a kid. And I remember just flicking through the pages and then something happened. There was a distortion of, of the room. It was like everything was coming in and out and the noise was distorted. And then my heart started pumping really fast and I couldn't breathe. And I'm like, yeah, I gotta focus. And I'm trying to look at the pages. And it felt like I was speed reading. And I'm like turning the pages and everything's moving fast and you can't control it. And it's just like hyper speed of and and I'm a kid. No one had ever told me about anxiety attacks. No one ever told, I thought I was having a heart attack. And we don't talk about that in Latino communities. It wasn't like I was on medication for anxiety. I didn't even know that was possible or available. I didn't know that that was even available until years later. So I dealt with the anxiety attacks for years on my own. And I would sit back like I would if I was having a nightmare in my bedroom, and I'd wake up from a nightmare and I'd close my eyes and I'd pray and I'd pray. But something about breathing helped me. And it was like clutching my fists and sitting there and like, and praying and literally praying for this to pass. Please, please, please let it pass. And I'm a kid. I'm a fucking 11-year-old kid. 12-year-old kid dealing with these anxiety attacks, trying to breathe in the most random of places, on the trolley, on the bus, in class when they would come on. And they would come on all the damn time. And so I'd have to like sit there and I got really good with time. So it's funny, to this day, I go to the doctor, my heart rate's elevated, and I'm like, can we redo it? Just give me a few minutes. And I'll sit there, I'll get in this meditative state. I take a number of deep breaths. I tell myself to calm down. I bring my heart rate down. Like I just calm myself a little bit. And they'll redo my blood work or they'll redo my blood pressure and they'll be like, oh wow, that was interesting. It's back to normal. And so, but because at a really young age, without understanding about medication, not knowing where to go for help, not knowing about mental health treatment, especially for anxiety, I had to learn how to calm myself down to be able to function. Because I didn't want you or Amber, Susan, to think that I'm going crazy. And I felt like I was going crazy, especially because everything gets so distorted and the voices and the noise in the background gets distorted, that that sense of reality, like you're not living in reality anymore, and it just gets really scary, and I thought I was going crazy. um what I would tell, I wish that when I was that age, or I wish someone told me to make an appointment with a doctor.
Yeah.
The hard part about accessing mental health is that a lot of times it's it's having somebody to go with me, wishing somebody would go with me so that I didn't feel so alone in the process. So having somebody there that I trusted and support, for me,
Yeah.
because I didn't trust the medical system, I didn't trust the mental health system. For those that have been a part of the previous, fireside chats, will understand it when you read the book. So when I finally got clean and found a new therapist, I had a friend go with me to talk about my anxiety attacks, and that person stayed with me in therapy. And that person was kind of like my coach, the one person I trusted in my journey towards mental health healing.
I'm so sorry you had to confront that at such a young age. I mean, it's unreal. So thank you for sharing that part. I have another quote I'd like to share with a follow up question. So in the book, you say, angry, I vowed to make enough money to buy a car so he wouldn't have to depend on my dad anymore. Within months, I bought my first car, a brown two-door 1971 Buick, for $500 cash. I was 14 years old and in ninth grade. So as a reader, I read that, and me personally, I could see that your trauma and addiction was intertwined with the need for you to provide for your family financially. What was it like coming to terms with that as an adult and realizing that you were under tremendous pressure to provide, and that played a part in your addiction? What was it like, seeing that?
It's actually coming up now. Um,
Okay.
I am a caregiver for my 81-year-old mom,
Yeah.
and the I've been the rock at different times, for my family, and all that is coming up now again. That pressure of providing or being the provider. Not that they're placing that pressure on me, I place it on myself a lot of the time. And for those of us that grew up in dysfunctional homes, and oftentimes the abused become the protector. And I would always step in to protect my mom from my dad. And so when I read that, when I hear that quote, I think of, oh my God. Because and they edited all that out from the book, but the amount of men that I had to have sex with to be able to afford a $500 car at 14 years old is a lot, but it's what was needed and it's what I needed to do. So at that point in time, I'm just like, look, I got to buy a car. So I got to do what I got to do. It didn't really hit me about the pressures that I felt on myself when until I got clean and started looking at my own resentments that I had towards others. And one of it was the resentments I had to the life or the circumstances in which I was born into. And having to work through those issues and find peace in my past and live in acceptance and live in the now. And also forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't easy, and forgiving self also. So forgiveness for me was key to get to a place of like, I can kind of look back sometimes and laugh at it and be like, damn, you were doing some crazy ass shit at 14, 15 years old. But being able to say like, it's all right, man. You're not broken, Jesse. You got this. You got this.
Yeah. And
So
you're not. And, as a reader, like going through the book, that was just a really like shocking paragraph, because when I was in ninth grade, I was worrying about homework, not having the same. It's just unreal. But thank you for sharing that. Another theme I think throughout the book, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think a couple of characters are strategically named to represent what they symbolize to you. And so we touched on Hope a little bit earlier in the podcast, but um I kind of want to talk about her just a little bit more, because I loved every single chapter that she was in. I won't give away all the scenes that you guys had together, but I really liked her. I thought she was strong, and sweet and loving. And my main question to you is, what does she mean to you? What was it like, the how she brought you to the NA meetings? And my real question is, are you guys still in touch? Because I don't know the answer to that.
hope is so when the readers read the book, you will see how certain people came into my life at very strategic times. Hope feels like the angel in my life that was placed at exactly the right moment by some divine intervention, never knowing where that meeting each other was going to take us to. I mean, we met in a parking lot on our way to a rave, getting high, and she's still in my life. She's still a very good friend. She's still the same bubbly, loving self that she's always been. And I tell her this all the time, that she was an angel placed in my life that helped me find a new way to live without her even knowing it. Who would have thought that her throwing the yellow pages at me and screaming and saying, "You need to find help, you're a drug addict," because I stole her stash, that she would have also, she's clean longer than I am. She stayed clean after that first meeting. And
Wow.
so we're still in each other's lives. She's still a very good friend. Due to COVID, I haven't seen her in a few years, but we talk and we're still in touch. And I make sure that I tell her how much she really means to me.
Well, I'm sure she'll love the part about her in the book. I mean, it was so It was so emotional. I loved it. I have 2 questions left, so just to throw that out there, timing wise, Susan.
Before you get started with those questions, I just want to remind everyone who's just joining us that we are talking today with author Jesse Leon, who's talking about his memoir, which will be published in August, I'm Not Broken. Today is the last and fourth section of a 4-part mini-series on Jesse's identity, talking about his road to recovery and being a recovering addict. So again, you can pre-order a copy of the book at adventuresbythebook.com at the link in the fortune cookie in the middle of your screen. And take it away. Continue on, Amber.
Okay, I have 2 left. We touched back on your sponsor a couple episodes ago, or maybe last episode, but I want to bring him back. So I'd like to share a little passage from the book, if you don't mind. As the meeting closed, I was gathering the courage to go up to the Chicano guy when the woman who'd sat next to us stopped me and said, "Why don't you ask that black guy who celebrated 6 years to sponsor you?" And then you said, "Say what? Oh, hell nah. What's that black dude going to help me with? I'm a Chicano and from the barrio." And then she said, "I think you should ask the black guy. You already know how to hang with Chicanos. I think you don't want to ask the black dude because he reminds you of you. It's up to you." So I thought this was a really interesting part that she kind of went out of her way to push you outside of your comfort zone. So what was it like choosing a sponsor that you might not immediately feel like you could connect with, and how did that impact you on the road to recovery?
Once again, sometimes looking back, I look at that as a moment of magic in my life because I walked into that meeting, and once again, when the readers read this, like you'll see it play out. I walked into that meeting and I heard about this meeting in the barrio, and it was where the Chicanos went, right? And so I wanted a Chicano sponsor. I wanted a sponsor that was raised in the barrio and used in the barrio that I could relate to and blah, blah, blah. And so when she said that, so when the black dude celebrated, I was like, all right, cool, 6 years, congratulations, blah, blah. When the Chicano guy celebrated, I was like, that's my sponsor, eh? So I didn't listen or hear shit about the meeting. The whole meeting, I was rehearsing in my head how I was going to ask the Chicano guy to be my sponsor. So I'm thinking in my head, do I say, "Hey, Holmes, will you be my sponsor?" Or am I going to say, "Hi, I'm Jesse. Will you be my sponsor?" I had all these scenes in my head about how I was going to ask this Chicano guy. So when she said that after the meeting, I was like, fuck, why'd you mess my shit up? So I was walking up to the Chicano guy when these people blocked me to congratulate him on his years of recovery, and the black dude was standing next to me. So he ends up turning around and he's like, "Hey, what's up, little man?" And I look up at him and I'm like, fuck. I'm like kicking rocks, right? Like little cholito and shit. I'm like, fuck. Hey, Holmes, my homegirl over there told me to ask you to be my sponsor, eh? And he laughs and he's like, "Here's my beeper number." And he gives me his beeper number and he gives me his home number. And thank God for that. I didn't know that that moment of magic in my life would have changed my life forever. That African American man taught me how to be a man in the rooms of recovery. That African American man, we have a saying in recovery in Narcotics Anonymous that it's not about age, race, sexual identity, creed, religion, or lack of root. And so he taught me that I could be me in the rooms of recovery and walked me through the 12 steps and just taught me how to be a productive member of society. So it's funny because part of what I'm getting from this conversation with you, Amber, is even to this day, I don't know that who I might meet walking out of this room today at a meeting tonight, or even you and our interactions from meeting you at Reina Grandes' book release And that real quick interaction with you, who would have thought that meeting Amber at an Adventures by the Book event with to support my dear friend and author Reina Grande would have created such a beautiful spiritual bond with you and loving your questions to be able to be here today on this amazing platform. So I got to be open to those moments of magic in my life, because I don't know where they're going to lead me.
Wow. I have chills. It's true. It's like it's sometimes, there's just something else that's pulling us along that makes sure that we're on the right path. But your sponsor really leads me to my last question because he brought my absolute favorite part of the book. He helped you make your list of higher powers. Um, and that was such a unique, I had never heard of that before, and I even wrote one myself after I read that part in the book just because I was so inspired by what you wrote. But I just want to share a little bit from that section of the book. He told me, keep that paper, and over the years feel free to add to it. This is your new higher power if you choose it to be. And then you were thinking, it was that simple for me. From that moment, everything changed. I learned to find my higher power wherever I was. That is one of the biggest blessings I gained from recovery. And so it's this idea of choosing forgiveness and love, and you choosing that and putting it down on paper and going to that instead of going to a really negative mind space. So what was it like realizing I don't have to hate myself? I can choose what I'm writing down on this paper to believe in myself. You had me crying.
You're having me like light up because this is probably one of the most impactful moments in my journey of recovery. And people always say, I thank God for recovery, but I thank recovery for bringing me to God. And it's this like circle of when the readers read the book, you will understand how much and why I hated God. I hated the concept of God. It was ingrained in my head that I was going to burn in hell and that God hated me. So if I was going to go to hell for the life that I had lived, not by my choice, which I felt that way for a very long time, I was a child that was sexually abused and sex trafficked. And so I hated God. Where was God? And so for so long, I would say, well, if I'm going to burn in hell, then I'm going to enjoy the ride getting there. And decided to party and fuck the system, fuck everybody, and just keep getting high. And so here I am in recovery, and they're talking about this concept of a higher power, and I can't separate it from God.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, we're talking about higher power, Jesse. So he did all these examples. God is an acronym for good orderly direction. God is an acronym for the great outdoors. God is an acronym for group of drunks. If I'm in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, God is an acronym for group of dope fiends. If I'm in an NA meeting, none of them worked.
Yeah.
And so thank God that this black man who I didn't want to be my sponsor made it real simple. He said, and I wish I had a paper here. He said, I want you to grab a piece of paper. Imagine it's a paper. I want you to fold it the long way. And on one side of the paper, write down the higher power you were raised with, the God that you were raised with, and the relationship you had with that God and what that God represented to you. And on the other side of the paper, if you could create your own concept of God, Jesse, no matter how stupid, ridiculous, how dumb you feel, I want you to write it down and I don't want you to erase anything. And when you're done, we're going to go over that list. So I did. And I made a list that when the readers read it was so important for me. And so what we did is we tore the paper in half. We burned the one that I was raised with, and we kept the one that I wanted, and that became my higher power. and I've added on it over the years. And I can fuck with that guy. I can fuck with that higher power. That's my road dog. You know what I mean? When other people may fail me, my higher power doesn't fail me. My higher power got my back. And I can find them in a Jewish synagogue, a Muslim mosque, a Buddhist temple, the great outdoors, up here in the mountains in Eureka among the redwoods, or at the ocean and the beach. You know, like I could find them in you, and even on this platform with the questions you're asking me to let me know that I'm okay. So that's probably one of the biggest, beautiful blessings that being in recovery has helped me stay clean, was creating that relationship with the loving, caring God that I can work with. And he told me, and these were his words, yo, Jess, don't judge me for my higher power, and I won't judge you for yours. And don't judge other people for their God either. And that's allowed me to embrace other people's spiritual beliefs, religious dogmas. I can go to church with my sister who's a born again Christian. I can go to church with my mom. I can go anywhere in ceremony or be by myself and feel that connection to a higher power. That is the biggest blessing that my process in recovery has given me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, throughout the book, you didn't have anything to hold on to throughout all those difficult times. So, as the reader, finally seeing that you had something that was yours that gave you courage and forgiveness for yourself, the rest of the book blossomed after that. So, thank you so much for being vulnerable, and thank you so much for letting me ask you these difficult questions. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I will see you again later on in a couple months, but I will see you again.
Yes, you
So,
will.
Definitely. Thank you. As always, great questions, Amber. And I want to remind everybody in our audience that this is your last chance to come up on stage and chat with Jesse, ask your questions, because this is the fourth and last of our four-part series. And this is the time you have. We're running out of time. And great, I see that Deanna has joined us on stage. Welcome, Deanna. Did you have a question or a comment for Jesse?
Well, I missed a little piece because my grocery delivery came in, so it was aggravated. But I appreciate your story a whole lot. My show on here is called Laughter After Trauma, and it is. I'm listening to you and I'm watching you because I can see you on camera, and your smile is amazing. And the fact that you have gone through the trials, right, that you came through and are able to find that laughter after, I think that's the miracle that we all have in us. And that's what I like to share. I've had my own share of traumas. What I would like to say here in this is I have a process that I had to internalize, and forgiveness was the very first step for me in my process. And the reason why, it was even before gratitude, and it was because I was working on gratitude for an entire year. To find gratitude, and it's easy to be thankful for the good things, and like you said, you were angry with God. It's more difficult to be grateful for the things that happen to us that are out of our control, and to understand that at some point in time we're going to recognize that they were happening for us. And so for me, forgiveness in that arena was huge. And I think that one thing, and I'd like you to just, I'm sure you're going to be on the same page as me, but to ask this question of you as your concept of forgiveness, and that is that a lot of people think that forgiveness is some sort of absolution, like we can that we're condoning what somebody did, or we're able to somehow say that we have the power to forgive the wrong thing that they did. And in my opinion, the truth of the matter is that forgiveness is all about being able to release, and has nothing to do with about that other person or absolution. Like that absolution but belongs to some higher source, not us. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I know it's a lot. I'm sorry.
No, no, Deanna. Thank you first and foremost, and if you haven't read my book, I hope that when it comes out that you do, because Talk a lot about my journey with forgiveness.
Oh, yeah. So I will order my book through Susan's site. I've gotten several books from her already. As a matter of fact, Mr. James Blunt came on one of my shows. I love your guest, Susan, and I love your book. So definitely, I will get
Thank
your
you,
book. So don't
Deanna.
worry about that.
Awesome.
Okay, go ahead.
Awesome.
Sorry.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. My process of forgiveness is exactly the way you described it. And I had two friends yesterday, and I think they're both on here. One of them sent me a link on forgiveness because I'm there again, really learning how to practice forgiveness. I have been writing the book, brought up a lot of emotion and not reliving, because I believe that once I've worked through some processes and let them go, I've let them go. But other stuff has started to resurface that has brought up a lot of anger in me and resentments and people that I need to forgive. And but most importantly, also forgiving myself. And it's about me not holding on to these resentments that continue to impede my ability to see the beauty and the blessings in my life. So sometimes I'm just like, why am I holding on to so much anger? I need to let this shit go. And it starts with forgiveness. And
Oh,
so you hit it right on the spot. It's exactly my journey and my process.
and I can't agree more with the fact that you hold on to these things. So you're going through, I can only imagine processing through some of this stuff where you're not processing the same issues, new things are coming up because we process in layers, right? We heal in
Right,
layers
right, right.
and we heal in phases. And so bringing up that part also makes me think about the fact that that anger, that resentment, the space, the energy that it takes so much more energy for that than to be happy. And both of them are a choice. And for me, that was one of the big things is I recognized that the person that I was having anger and resentment about, they didn't care.
Right.
They're living their life
They're
somewhere.
living their life. They're going
Right.
on
And
doing
they're
their
not worried
thing.
about me
Girl,
one bit.
they
They
ain't
weren't,
worried about you. They ain't even thinking
no, they
about
were not worried about me when they hurt me. They
you.
weren't worried about me when they hurt my kids. They
Right,
sure not worried about me now.
right, right.
But but I'm allowing that to still control part of my life.
Yep.
And when that forgiveness became something that was, when I recognized that that had to turn, and I had to forgive myself for the things that happened, to which many of them, I felt like I didn't protect my kids and do the things that I needed to do. That was the work. But when I was able to get through that, the emotional freedom that it allowed was incredible. It was incredible. And I have started writing, but I keep stepping away from it because it's a process. It's pretty hard. Yes, I get that.
And forgiveness has been a process for me. And things continue to unfold. And the hardest person, it sounds cliche, the hardest person for me to forgive, and it starts with me. It's been me not blaming myself. Hence the title of my book. I'm constantly having to tell myself, like, dude, you're not Jesse, you're not broken. I'm not broken. I got this. I love you, Jesse. I forgive you. And it's hard. And I have to do that sometimes in the mirror over and over again to tell myself, you're beautiful and perfect just the way you are, and I forgive you. Sometimes I have to say, there's nothing for me to even forgive you for and about. What you did in the past, and people, you're beautiful as you are. It's hard, but it's a process. So thank you for that question, Deanna. It means a
Yeah,
lot.
and thanks for answering it. It's worth every second, and I'm so glad you did the work because now we get to share. Thank you so much.
And
Thank
laugh
you,
and
Deanna.
laugh after trauma.
Yeah, thank you, Deanna, for your comments and your question. And it's a good reminder that, the great thing about Fireside is you can click on anybody's icon and follow them. Deanna has a program, Life After Trauma, and you can follow her. And those who have been listening in on our conversation with Jessie, I think could really appreciate what she has to offer in her interviews and chats each week. So you can also click on Jesse's icon and follow him so that anytime he's on Fireside, you'll get notification. You can click on our our icons as well and follow our author interviews. So thank you again, Deanna. Appreciate that. And I know we're running out of time, and this is our last of the 4-part series. So one last chance to come up on stage and ask or chat with Jesse. But otherwise, I'm going to let Jesse close out the show with anything that we haven't talked about yet, any message he wants to share with anybody that we haven't shared, something that's important to him. And then I want to close too with what your gratitude is for the day, because I know that's an important part of your journey. So first, any messages that you want to share, anything that we haven't talked about in these last 4 weeks?
Well, the fact that we're talking about my process of recovery, um, there's a saying, and it's not mine, and it's a saying that we say in a certain fellowship, and it's that the message is hope and the promise is freedom. That any addict, can stop using drugs, lose a desire to use, and find a new way to live. And that statement for me is just so important because I didn't think it was possible for me. It would work for Deanna, it would work for Amber, it would work for you, Susan, not me. That obsession to get high, that desire to continue to use would never leave me. And I know that we all have family members, friends, cousins, that one relative who you're just like, damn, I just wish he'd stop getting high. I was that relative. I was that person. And so when I hear that the message is hope and the promise is freedom, Martin Luther King said it best, free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. That reminds me of me and my disease of addiction, that I have broken the shackles and I'm not getting high today. And I'm free, finally. And the life that has unfolded in front of me just because I stopped getting high and I found a new way to live has been just limitless. And I still get surprised. What I'm grateful for, I was walking the redwoods today with a group of community leaders. I'm visiting different tribal nations up here, up in the redwoods, meeting with native leaders. And I've never seen the redwoods. I would see them in National Geographic. I'm looking at the Klamath River where the salmon come in, and just the river coming out into the ocean. And when I look at those moments, I think back, damn, I was sleeping under a bush in a park, weighing 135 pounds, strung out on crystal meth and heroin, a sex worker. And look at me now, just because I allowed others to love me and found that hope. So the message is hope and the promise is freedom, that any addict can stop using drugs, lose a desire to use, and find a new way to live. And I'm a firm believer in that quote, in that statement. So so I'm grateful today. I may not be in an hour from now, but right now I am
In the moment.
in the
So
moment.
beautiful words to close out our 4-part series on. Again, Jesse Leon, author of the upcoming memoir, I'm Not Broken, which you can order a copy of at adventuresbythebook.com, the link in the fortune cookie, or from your favorite bookseller. I also want to thank those of you in our virtual audience, Deanna for coming up on stage and chatting with us, those of you who are listening in on our social profile page, our social media. And a reminder, this will convert to a recording. We'll post it on our Adventures by the Book YouTube page so you can listen again, share it with any of your friends who may need to hear it or who may want to hear it. And also a special thank you to Amber. You can't believe it, but this is her first series of moderating events, and she was like an old pro, amazing, brilliant questions. Yes, so,
Amber, you rock. Straight
she
up.
does rock,
You are
absolutely.
amazing.
Absolutely. And final words for you, Jesse, is let me tell you, you have been an inspiration. You're brave, you're courageous, you allowed yourself to be vulnerable in front of all this audience, all these strangers, people who don't know your story, but they love you because you are you're just a true human being. You know, you're genuine, you're real. And people know that when they listen to you. You're going to change so many lives and inspire so many people by sharing your journey and writing this book. It's been an honor and a privilege to talk to you these last 4 weeks.
I hope so, and thank you. And it's been an honor to be here with you, Susan, and meeting new people on the platform. Please, please, random messages of "Hey, how you doing?" Whether it's on my Twitter account, which is at Jesse Leon Author, or my Instagram account. I'm not good at it. I'm learning how to use it. I just got onto it. But those random little messages of "Hey, thank you," or "Hey, I'm thinking about you," really mean a lot. They keep me going sometimes one more day when I don't feel I can keep on going. And so thank you, Susan and Amber, for providing this platform and this opportunity. And I pray that the book does impact many people out there and inspires hope.
And it will, I guarantee it. And for those of you who are in the Southern California area, Jesse is going to be at the Carlsbad Public Library, along with two other authors, and our panel of authors is going to be speaking on voices of inspiration. And clearly, Jesse has a powerful voice of inspiration. It's going to be an amazing event. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you to our audience members, and much love to you. Until next time, what is your next adventure? Buy the book. Mwah. Bye, everybody.